first session that I went to, I was actually really excited about going to it. It's called Putting a Real-Time Face on Polling.
Okay, yeah.
Which, sounds just great for policy groups and marketers, really, because what it really got into, from the description, I did not understand that it literally meant putting a face on polling, because it's all about facial recognition.
Okay, so it's not necessarily getting it down to the individual and what's their story, because polling is just so mass, right?
Right, yeah. A poll would be about, a mass sample audience. So they talked about, they've got this little, graph or whatever up that I would love to share with you, but I don't have it. But it talked about going from the dinner table where, the old-time kind of 1960s Norman Rockwell sort of painting where, this marketer or poller would call and say, hey, sorry to interrupt your dinner, but how do you feel about X politician or X issue? And so to today, where we've got real-time polling anytime we want at the tip of our fingertips through social media and Twitter. So really, it's sort of passé to do the dinner time phone call.
And no one wants to be interrupted, right?
And
so people are more likely to engage on Facebook if they see their friends are taking the poll.
Right, and you're more willing possibly to be honest, because you don't have the social pressure of, talking to this stranger and who knows where it's going.
Right.
So so that was really interesting, I thought, just sort of like the dinner time to modern day where it's just anytime you want it, you have some sort of, gauge or temperature of what people are talking about. And then, let's see, this one guy is a professor at the University of Maryland, and he talked about what he studies, which is people's response to language. So he did research on how people respond to different political rhetoric in news or in speeches. So he would play samples of politicians engaging in spin or dodging or framing, and how we as people or we as humans are able to perceive those sort of tactics, and we do surprisingly poorly.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So it's not like Lie to Me, the TV show at all, right? Where you can totally read their faces or whatever.
No, yeah, people are really, really bad at it, apparently.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that, this is me putting my own spin on it, this is not him, I think a lot of it is people hear what they want to hear.
Yeah.
So if you like a certain politician, or if you like, let's say the Progressive Party or the, Conservative Party, you're going to say, they're right.
They say the
exactly
talking point that you agree with, and you immediately identify with it and take that as gospel truth.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So I thought that was interesting.
Did they cover any of the kind of the scientific validity of polling in this new era where people are falsifying data online and stuff like that? Did they get into that at all, or did they stay very specific on facial recognition?
Well, so it goes from the whole topic went from polling via social media to taking someone's face and mapping it and saying, are they lying? What is their perception from their face versus what they're saying? So technically, you could take a real-time polling sample by someone listening to a speech and saying, agree, disagree, agree, disagree, agree, disagree.
But the whole time they're watching your face.
But the whole time you're watching face.
And so you say agree when really your face is giving away disagree.
Your face is saying,
interesting.
So it kind of...
are they able to do that? Do they have security cameras that have this technology integrated,
someone would sign up for the study. It's
so it's still in that prototype phase.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and actually, I thought this was really interesting. The lady who really works on the facial polling and the facial research started her work working with autistic children.
Interesting.
Autistic children can't determine emotions via facial responses. And so then she realized that there was a whole other avenue for her to pursue, and that was in polling from ads and that sort of thing.
That is incredible. Wow.
So, and then the other one takeaway that I have was, as time goes on, and this is the other panelist was a man from Bloomberg, and he showed this whole data thing, anything that's on the internet, in the news, comes through Bloomberg in this giant data set thing. It just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls. It's crazy.
Hmm.
And so he can search it and say, like, I want to know what is going on for Obama, Colorado.
Okay.
And then he can get every single data point that's going on or being said in the news, on social media.
It's all categorized in one big feed.
One big feed.
And he can.
It looks like a
real-time-
stock ticker.
And he can real-time search that and pull out the
Yes,
bits that he
pull out
wants
the
to see.
snippets that he needs to see.
Wow.
So he says, as time goes on, you can track that opinions become more negative, and that's because people are understanding the consequences of what has happened.
Okay.
So, let's say Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, oh yeah, this is great, and then you realize maybe it's not so great, and so as time goes on, opinions start to
So it tracks really well when it launches, right?
initial responses.
Because there's all the promise there, and then it plummets as people realize what it truly means for them, whether it's higher premiums or lack of doctors or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and so that's just across the board. Just as time goes on, opinions tank. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like just the idea that you would be able to use facial recognition. Obviously, in this case, people are consenting to that, and you wonder later on if it's going to be an NSA style situation where you have this technology integrated into cameras that are at a rally or any. You think about London and the amount of camera coverage that they have, and how they could potentially use that.
Well, and I think about it too from maybe a more valid lie detector standpoint.
Okay, yeah.
Because a lie detector is not admissible in court.
Mm-hmm.
But if this proves to be more valid than a lie detector, what does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
very
anyway,
cool.
so that was my first session. So that started off the morning right.
Yeah, awesome.